Hey, so welcome to the next Sound to Print lesson. As you know, Sound to Print is foundational to the Onward Hebrew initiative. This lesson is actually divided into two segments. The first one offers global ideas, and the one that follows in the next presentation clearly and carefully shares a specific strategy that I think will make a huge difference to how your students learn to decode. So here's the point. Students who learn to pay attention to visual cues have an easier time with Hebrew decoding because they learn to better discriminate what is on the page. This presentation will share 5 strategies that assist with the goals, and again, 4 are in this presentation, and the last one is in the next video. Strategy number 1. This is pretty straightforward. You ask the students to point to the letter and vowel sign combination that makes a blank, whatever it is, sound on any prayer book page, could be on a worksheet. The idea is to focus on a granular sound like ro in bimro mav, not the whole word. Number 2 is very much like number 1, but it expands it from micro to macro, and the instructions can be more challenging, especially if you integrate Hebrew through movement commands. In English, you can say, point to Shema or touch Shema, or in Hebrew through movement, you might say, Latzbiya al Shema or Laga'at b'Shema. Or you can get even more challenging and say things like, pick up echad and then put it under the word Yisrael. If you and your students have all been learning Hebrew through movement, it should be easy enough to do these instructions in Hebrew. We saw this photo and example earlier in the lesson on hearing and then finding. Students sorted phrases in the order of a blessing based on what the teacher read. In this presentation, we share the strategy because you are reading more than a syllable. You're reading an entire word or phrase. Strategy number 3 is sorting, and you can do this in any number of ways, but we're going to suggest making a student's set of cards with words or phrases that they know. Could be from a prayer that you've been working on, Hebrew through movement, Jewish life vocabulary, whatever. Give each individual 6 cards, although certainly as they get more experienced looking at cards on the table in front of them, you could increase that number. The first time, ask students to sort the cards by any given instruction you offer. For example, you might tell them to sort cards so that those that have similar beginning letters are together. And be sure to ask your students to put their sorted piles on the right side of their desk or space. We always want to encourage right to left progression. As you'll note in the blue circle, each of these words start with a bet. It follows the instructions of sort by the same first letter. Or you might ask students with this group of cards to put any words that begin and end with the same letter on the right side of their desk. Ask a child to name the beginning and ending letters, and in a word like this, with a little bit of difficulty, ask them to point to the vowel sign that helps the lamed give its sound. By the way, that dot next to the lamed is called a cholam chaser, and the lamed says lo in this case. This strategy encourages a focus on the micro, the little things that students see in the words. After a time or two of you offering a rule, you can ask students to sort the cards any way they wish. Each time after a sorting sentence, certainly stop and ask each group to share what the sorting rule was they chose. If you look at this, we have 3 piles. What do you think the sorting rule was that this student chose? Well, it turns out this student decided to count numbers of letters per word, and that's how she made this happen. Number 4, if your students are working on the Olivet, Give individual letter cards and have children divide them into piles of I know these and oh, I don't know these. The I know pile can be reviewed quickly at times, but students should work on the I don't know pile just 2 or 3 cards at a time until they also go into the I know pile. Certainly you can do this with whole words and not just individual letters. Overall, queuing up visual clues is less about students decoding or reading, and it's more about them paying close attention to Hebrew words. The 4 strategies we just looked at are, number 1, students find what you read. This is really the micro, the small parts of a word. Number 2, students find what you read, but it's macro. It's going to be full words, phrases with more complicated commands. Number 3 are sorting games. Number 4 are piles of these I know and these I don't know. Which brings us to the next video presentation, which is a very specific but really important queuing strategy. It has to do with syllables. See you then.